Hello there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Ryan in Singapore. Welcome to the Mindfulness Daily Practice. So this week, the topic is going to be about just a few things that I've noticed as I've moved. So if you've been following me, you notice that my background is different than what it was about a week and a half ago. So I think on Saturday I mentioned that there's stuff all around me and it's chaos. It's still chaotic here. I think that's pretty normal for us when we're moving. And so what's the idea? How do you settle in? I've determined yesterday that like one room at a time, and also more urgent things. Like what are the things that I really need to know that need them to be organized. So I think that's maybe a good way to get started. Not exactly our topic today, but to remember to do things one thing at a time, and to not get caught up as best you can. Not get caught up in the whirlwind of the full catastrophe of life. So anyway. Today's topic is called Hedonic Adaptation, and the reason that I brought up Hedonic Adaptation, well, that's kind of a big word, right? Well, what is Hedonic Adaptation first? Let's talk about that. So Hedonic Adaptation is this concept that each of us has a particular happiness set point that we come back to, so that no matter what happens in life, no matter you win the lottery, and I'll use this is an example from the I think it's called the Science of Happiness talk. So you can win the lottery, or you can become a paraplegic, and these two things, right? Wow, winning the lottery sounds great. It's fantastic. That's what I want. That's going to make my life so much better. Becoming a paraplegic, I couldn't imagine anything worse. Wow, what a horrible thing that could happen to me. That would make me so unhappy, and the happiness I would feel would be as permanent as being a paraplegic, right? Something that can't, at least with today's science, be cured. Well, what's interesting about both of these situations is that after each one of these situations happens, that it's like the happiness of this person is measured as best as we can measure happiness before the event happens, and then measured again immediately after the event happens, and then measured years down the road. And what the research shows is that around 2 years, no matter what happens in your life, within reason. Being a paraplegic is a rather severe thing. Winning the lottery is a relatively great thing, but your happiness comes back to the happiness set point that you have. And so each of us have our own happiness set point. So you're wondering, well, why is that new thing that I've bought not making me happy? Why is winning the lottery not making me happy? Why? Well, and then maybe we don't even think about the bad things. Why is that? Why doesn't that have a permanent effect on me? Because we adapt. Our emotions adapt to our circumstances. And so we continuously come back and end up back where we started. So it seems like, wow, it's rather bleak. It means I can't change my happiness level. Well, there are a few things that have long-lasting impact on happiness. And, I'll quote Dan Harris, for example. Dan Harris has a podcast called 10% Happier. He's a news anchor who had a panic attack on live television and started meditating to try and help that. And I think that the reason he calls his podcast 10% Happier is it's one of the few things that you can do. Mindfulness meditation is one of the few things that you can do that has a lasting impact on your happiness, that you can change your happiness set point. You can bring your happiness set point above, forward a little bit. 10% is a lot, especially considering that most things give a 0% change. So this kind of, I think one of the things to pay attention to is when something happens in your life, how long does it last? When you win an argument, right? What did you get? What did you win for winning the argument? What's it feel like to win? How long does that winning feeling last? And I think this is one thing that mindfulness can really help us with, to start to notice that, to be aware what it feels like, what any of these kind of situations feel like. Feeling the sense of success or feeling the sense of failure. And what I think is really interesting about a lot of these, well, especially these negative things, the negative things feel very permanent. When something bad happens, it's like, wow, my whole life is affected. Every single aspect of me is on this. And actually, if we look with a bit more cognitive clarity, which is what mindfulness can help us get, we see that, in fact, it is not pervasive. It doesn't it doesn't affect every single area of your life. I think that's a story that we tell ourselves sometimes. It's not permanent. It's going to end. There isn't, and I think that's an important thing to notice, is that, 2 years may seem like a long time, but, when something really challenging happens to us, that the research shows that within 2 years, you're back to where you were. So even if it's really tough, you will eventually spring back in time. So it just does take that time. And there is a kind of natural human ability to accept the situation for how it is, accept things for how they are. So even if you lose the use of your limbs, you can find that eventually you come back and you accept it, and you're happy about it. So, this goes for times, and it goes for people who are experiencing strong depression, to understand that the situation that you're experiencing is temporary, that your emotional situation is not permanent, and it will change over time. So, before we get started, I'll tell you what triggered me to talk about this topic was, in the last week, I haven't been leading this daily practice, and I've been getting up an hour later. And to lead this mindfulness daily practice, I wake up at 4:45 a.m., which is pretty early. Most people think that's too early to wake up when I tell other people that I do this. And one of the reasons that when I'm on meditation retreat, I wake up at 4:30. So after my first retreat, I just kind of got used to waking up early, and I don't see it as a huge negative, right? But what's interesting is, in the last week, waking up at 5:45 instead of 4:45, I was like, wow, I'm sleeping in. It feels like I'm getting so much sleep and so much rest. And I guess I wanted to share that feeling with you, because I just thought it was really interesting. Because most of the time, you tell somebody I wake up at 5:45, that doesn't seem like sleeping in for the majority of people. So it just kind of hit me last week, like, oh, it's so interesting to see how positive I feel about waking up at 5:45. And nothing, of course, I'm not complaining about waking up at 4:45. I really enjoy leading this practice. And I guess the point is this as well, is that if I started waking up at 5:45 every day, eventually I'd just be used to it, and it would feel early again. And I'd probably, not feel rested even after that. So that was kind of my logic as to how I arrived at this topic. So, okay, in conclusion, before we start our meditation, hedonic adaptation is you have a happiness set point no matter what external factors are happening. I think that's kind of the important as well. And sometimes the internal thoughts. So when you've got these external factors, internal thoughts affecting your happiness, making you happier, making you more unhappy, these waver. We go from side to side, but there is a baseline that we always kind of come back to and hover around, even if we don't sit at that set point. And what's the cure for this? What can bring, what does the research show that brings lasting additional happiness? Dan Harris would say 10% happier. Mindfulness meditation. Because mindfulness meditation gives you more awareness and allows you to see your emotional state from a more objective third-party point of view. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into our meditation. It's just going to be a seated meditation, so feel free to get yourself comfortable. So I would encourage you to bring your back away from your backrest. Sit up straight. Start to notice the feeling of the supporting surface. Pressing against your body. Notice where the cushion or chair is pressing against the buttocks. Notice the legs, any place where the legs are being contacted. Maybe your feet are flat on the floor, noticing your feet. And starting to shift your attention to the belly. So as we sit here in stillness, I encourage you as best you can to remain still for the duration of our practice. Only move with intention. Just notice before you make any movements. Stay still as best you can and just feel how the body moves with each breath. The expansion on the inhalation. The release on the exhalation. Over and over, this process happens. Thousands of times each day. We breathe in and we breathe out. Can you bring your full attention to what it feels like to be breathing? Hold your attention here at the abdomen as best you can. And then, I got distracted. A thought came into my mind. The sound around me distracted me. A physical sensation brought me away from my belly. Is it possible to let go? Let go of the thought. Let go of that sound. These are all present moment phenomena. As the thought ends, not following the thought train, instead releasing it as best you can. Through awareness, you'll find that as you become aware of a thought, it's like touching a soap bubble. It just pops and vanishes. And then you can return your attention back to your breath. Doesn't mean that thought isn't going to come back. Maybe it will, but for now, intending to stay focused on the feeling of breathing. And if something else comes up, welcoming it. It's here. Seeing it. Experiencing it fully. And then redirecting the attention back to the breath. Feeling the abdomen expanding, stretching out as you breathe in, falling back toward the spine as you breathe out. And where is the mind now? Are you still on the breath? Are you still focusing on that feeling, or have you wandered? If you've wandered, remembering it's normal, it's natural. Don't judge yourself. It's okay. The beginning of the meditation is now. The past is no longer here. You can refocus your attention now. Focus again on that feeling of breathing. Expansion as you breathe in. Release as you breathe out. Keep it up, you're doing great. Just a few more minutes to go. Do you ever find yourself assessing, how am I doing? How's the meditation going? See if you can let go of that. Just need to be here with the breath. It doesn't matter if you get distracted 1,000 times. As long as you are intending to meditate, you are meditating. Intending to stay focused. So each time that you get distracted, not following that train of thought, each time you notice the distraction, coming back to the breath, coming back to the object. Noticing all the little details of what it feels like to be breathing. And so maybe you feel like you've been distracted this whole time. Let's focus our attention entirely on the next 3 breaths. If you like, you can even control your breath now, make it a bit deeper. So now we'll go ahead and close our practice with 3 rings of the bell. But before we do, maybe take a little time to thank yourself for having made the time today to do this powerful practice. Continuing to practice like this is a way for you to increase your happiness set point. So keep it up. Right. Well done, everyone. So how'd it go today? What came up for you? What did you notice in your practice? And furthermore, any questions about hedonic adaptation? Have you, or any sharing? Is there anything that you've noticed about in your life? Could be something small, like me, like waking up an hour later and seeing how that affects you, seeing what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and have you noticed yourself adapting that over time? I just need that. Goenka, I remember Goenka talking. He doesn't mention the word hedonic adaptation, but in the retreat, just kind of like, wow, looking for a mode of transport. It's like, well, I'll just be happy when I get a motorcycle, and then it's like, okay, this motorcycle is okay, but wow, I'll be a lot happier when I have a sedan. And then you get your sedan, and it's like a Toyota Prius, and you go, oh man, sure would be nice to have a Lexus IS, right? That's way better than a Toyota Prius, right? And so then you do it, you get your Lexus, and then you say, you know what would really be good is to have a Ferrari. And then after you get your Ferrari, you're like, I think I really need a helicopter to be happy. And so this was kind of Goenka's illustration, that it's just like, how long? Yeah, there is some pleasure in getting those things, but the pleasure is not long lasting. But the pleasure does disappear. So that we do return back to our happiness set point. So I'm gonna have a look at the chat now. Yeah, Rachel says, I stayed with it the whole time, but my mind did wander a lot. Thanks so much for sharing, Rachel. Yeah, my background, I just thought I have this balcony, and it's nice early morning. Good to kind of sit here in front of the balcony and do the practice here. And I get some nice natural wind blowing too, which keeps me cool in this hot Singapore weather. So it's a really, I'm really fortunate to be at this new place. Barbara says, I'm growing to enjoy the cooler water at the end of my shower. Not all the way cold yet, but definitely cool water. Yeah, and so that's the example from weeks ago, right? This homework assignment that I'd given you all to try a cold shower. Notice what happens. Not to use it for, it's supposed to have some health benefit too, but instead of thinking about the health benefit, notice the mind. Notice yourself resisting when that happens, when you turn the cold water on, like, woo. And then the more you do it, the more you get adapted to it, the more it becomes like it's not as unpleasant as it was in the beginning. Thanks, Barbara, for sharing that. Rachel says, Hedonic Adaptation. When I moved to my new apartment, I was ecstatic about the view, and now I find myself occasionally looking at it and not taking it in. I force myself to focus and not to miss out. Thanks, Rachel. I'm going to try to do the same at this place, is not to get too accustomed to it. And it's really easy, right? That's really, really easy for that to happen. For you just... another great example of this was just when I did my retreat in Sri Lanka. I was on a train towards, we land in Colombo, and I was on a train to Kandy, and I was sitting next to a woman that lived in Kandy, and as we were going, I was looking out the window, and the mountains were just gorgeous. What a beautiful country. And I was just looking out and saying, wow, how that's so beautiful. It's so amazing. And she said, I guess I forgot. I've been here too long to remember to look at that view and take it in. And so, this kind of reflects back to beginner's mind. So can we look at things with a child's eyes as if it were the very first time? And see things, again, remember the beauty of some of the things that you may have forgotten. Thanks, Rachel. Suzanne, can you half meditate? Sometimes I find myself somehow still on the breath, but aware of other thoughts too. But other times completely lost in thought before my prime me kicks in. Well, this is what's really interesting, right? How does it work? And I think that this is one that instead of for me to answer, instead it's more for one for you to explore. But I think there is an answer for this. That I think that as you focus on the breath, and you're going to get distracted, right? Like the thought begins to form. You can start to be aware of the thought as it's forming before it comes up. And it's possible for you in that moment for the thought to not even completely form and come back to breath. So, that's what I think. Is it half meditating? I think as long as your intention is to stay focused on your object of meditation, it's meditating. And if you're trying to look at your thoughts, then we're going into the realm of not meditating. But it's interesting because you're focusing on the breath isn't designed to be extremely interesting. There's a movement away from the breath that naturally happens, especially as we're so accustomed to being distracted, right? With our society today, with smartphones and everything, we're always being distracted, and you'll find that this is the condition of the mind. We talked about neuroplasticity a couple weeks ago, and then this is it. We've conditioned our minds to constantly get distracted, so it may become easier to see thoughts as they bubble up, especially as we start practicing mindfulness. And I had plenty of distraction today myself, although I have to say my meditation was a little bit, a lot more focused than it was in the last few days. So I feel like, maybe I'm settling in, adapting a bit more to being here in this place. Yeah, Rachel's also trying cooler showers. Laura asks, am I on every day again? Yes, I am. I'm here from Monday through Saturday. So I'm trying to get back into my regular swing of things. And it looks like I didn't get banned for saying the word YouTube last time. So all of these meditations are recorded. I upload them to YouTube in a channel called Ryan's Daily Mindfulness Practice. So if you missed anything, you want to go back and you want to review something, or you want to see like last week's meditation, stuff's all available there. So I'll see you tomorrow. Our topic tomorrow is your mindfulness bank. So yeah, it's good. It's nice for me. Like, I smile as I look at my topics because, of course, they're related to what's been going on. So what's your mindfulness bank? We'll talk about that more tomorrow. Okay, let us close practice the way that we usually do, by sending well wishes out. So start with yourself. May I be happy and peaceful. May everyone watching, listening, wherever they are, I wish them all happiness and peace. May all human beings and all sentient life across this planet, across the universe, may we all be happy and peaceful. All right, have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.